Thank you for checking out this SIFT video. Please note, this was a hybrid event with attendance at Germantown Mennonite Church, simultaneously broadcast to virtual attendees via Zoom. There are places where the Zoom audio overrides the live feed, making that audio audible but muffled. This video has been edited by our social media manager, me, Leanne Lindsay, not a professional editor or SIFT filmmaker. It is intended to give an overview of the Liberation Through Afrofuturism event, which, despite some technical issues, was well attended and well received.
And then we're also going to talk about liberation through music and lyrics and how do you analyze that and freeing your mind from the oppressor. How many people like to free their mind from the oppressor? Yes. And then there will be liberation through literature. So we'll talk about how to analyze whose critical thinking skills, be able to look at literature through science fiction and fantasy, and how you could use that as a lens to promote and liberation through literature and written expression. Before we get into Afrofuturism, okay, I'm going to call up the next speaker.
Hi, my name is Nadine Patterson, and I'm a member of the collective SIFTMedia 215, Sisters in Film and Television. And we are somewhat new collective, been around since 2019. I would like all members of SIFTMedia 215 who are in attendance today to stand up. If you can say hi to you. Hi. And we're going to be showing several short films in between the presentation of our esteemed educators. Okay, so our first film today is a futuristic drama called Memories from the Future by M. Asalh. It's a 6-minute film, and then we'll show the film, and afterwards we'll have a short 3-minute Q&A. A futuristic traveler escapes to the past to witness and interrogate the realities of the city's urban housing and development policies. Using footage from a documentary in 1941 called A Place to Live, the Philadelphia Housing Authority funded an Academy Award-nominated propaganda film. Memories of the Future interweaves the narratives of both future-themed films and also our urban present. The performer that's the star of this film is called Jennifer Kidwell. Asalh is a filmmaker and a film educator. Her films are screened around the world in many festivals, including Black Star here in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And her current piece, Sundown Road, which was produced by our own Nikki Harmon, will have its streaming premiere in March on Quelly TV.
Thank you. Oh, I would love to hear the comments if anyone is in the chat. That's perfect. Anyone in the audience can make a comment about what we saw, because this film really encompasses what Afrofuturism is about. It's about liberating your mind and freeing your mind from the oppression that is around us. So, what is Afrofuturism? It's a movement in literature, music, art, featuring futuristic fantasy, science fiction themes, which incorporates elements of Black history and/or culture. What you saw in that short film kind of shows us an example of this aspect that you would want to see. We do believe that not only is this is it liberating, but we do believe it is an act of resistance. Okay, when you do believe in Afrofuturism or you use that art of Afrofuturism, it is a way to sort of reclaim your own identity. If you look here, you can see there are sort of a lineage line here that talks about how important it is to know your history, knowing who you are, as well as celebrating Black joy and expressing yourself, a way of self-expression, and then obviously another way to envision yourself in the future, inspiring things to make changes. And if you see it, if you look at the symbols that we are using here, we show you that there's St. Cole for talking about looking forward to look, or looking backwards to look forward. And then we talk about knowing yourself and your identity. And the other one is talking about greatness, about knowing who you are and where you're going to go. Here's the history of Afrofuturism. Some of you may already know this, and I know it will be already presenting early in the next couple of slides. The musician Sun Ra is considered to be the father of Afrofuturism. He's widely due to his lyrical links to Africa and the traditions that he had in his beats. And then Afrofuturism was this sort of redefined eventually later on in the 1990s, just to talk about the ideas of, again, elements of science fiction, historical fiction, and anything that has Afrocentricity and magic and realism and all those different things have sort of been a redefine of Afrofuturism and how it has sort of changed over the years. So then we also just talk about this quote where you just freedom begins in your mind. And with that said, we'll call up our next presenter, or actually we'll stop the Q&A. Okay. Another comment.
So what I noticed is something that was kind of like cleaning your neighborhood. Based off of sorry, no, it's about like cleaning your neighborhood, like taking away understanding, you know, what is the different things, especially in Philadelphia. That's the way I connected to the film, because I connected in that way, you know, walking down the street every day in Philly. Like having those memories of what I remember my neighborhood as. And just using that, I think here, scientifically, they were using it as like an escape to go to this other environment, this other safe place that they would like to go to, because the safe place that they know was already taken.
And those recurring things happen in almost every single futuristic elements are in every piece of it. Anything else?
Yeah. So I agree. Oh, sorry. I saw the same thing that you saw, and of course, it was a reminder of what the existence of how we're living our lives today in communities. But the likeness with how our neighborhoods have changed and what's being built right now was a reiteration of a conversation that's going on there. Why is our neighborhood changing? How are people being displaced by the changes in our neighborhood? And what can we do about it?
And if you think historically, that talks about randomly, right? So do you see some of the historical components of the elements of Afrofuturism as well? It talks about, again, history, culture, and the things that have happened to us and how we can make changes in our future. Anything else? Ms. Wiggins, I see you online.
Hi. Yeah, I was just thinking, though I couldn't hear the soundtrack. The images tell the story of, for me, the present, with looking at I guess the actor, you know, on the steps, and then looking at how some of our lives in terms of housing, and now for some people, this gentrification is a future, but you know, where's our part in that? So it's very interesting.
All right, thank you. I'm just going to do another tech check and the request. Was there anyone else having difficulty hearing it online? If you could just give me a thumbs up if you heard it, the video. Okay, we're going to work through it. Thank you. Our next presenter that'll be talking about, she's going to give you a storytelling element, and then she's going to take you through liberation through music.
All right. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
So, once upon a time, many times, there were little Black boys and girls, some of the stars and some of the metropolis, whether born of mystical powers from another universe or humanoid androids. All were different, and being different is everything. These electrified celestial beings imagined into existence a futuristic alternate universe of sound and visual splendor where Black people not only exist but can thrive. So I'm going to talk about liberation through music. We're going to looking at their analyzing lyrics and videos. So using this is thinking about pedagogy. We always start with an essential question. It's like, how can we use music to teach us about our historical, social, and racial past? And how can music help us reimagine a more liberatory future? And when I think about Afrofuturism, I think about two. Can you guys see that? I think about quotes from Bell Hook's book, Teaching to Transgress. And I think about what Afrofuturism really is. It is a revolutionary pedagogy of resistance that is profoundly anti-colonial. It is learning at its most powerful, and it could indeed liberate. Afrofuturistic music usually has several elements, and this is how you help define music within the genre of Afrofuturism: storytelling through sound, lyrics, or visualization. That visualization could be the videos themselves, fashion with the videos, fashion when they are doing their stage performances. One of the main things about Afrofuturism, in whether the genre is literature or music or art, it's identity nonconformity as a way of liberating. So Afrofuturist musicians usually challenge stereotypes and negative images created by those who seek to oppress and devalue and erase Black creativity and innovation. Artists, through their music and lyrics and storytelling, show value through multi-layers of Black identity while creating new, valued, and liberated identities. And we think about that, as Karen was saying, with Sun Ra and his orchestral interplanetary orchestra. Let me say that, that's really hard to say in front of people. With their song, Space is the Place. And in that song, they just repeat the lyrics over and over again. Space is the place, space is the place. And so it leaves it open to, when I think about analyzing the song, it leaves it open to the audience as they're listening to it, to the individual, to think about whether space is the past, where we began, whether it is our present, or whether it's going to be our future. And then you can identify and redefine yourself based on however you're seeing space as the place. But it really, Afrofuturist artists look at space, land, and the ocean as places. So when you think about when you're listening to Clipping song, The Deep, they use the ocean as the space in the beginning of certain of.
They can't hear me. Now they can hear me.
They can hear me. Afrofuturism, whether it is the genre of literature, music, or art, I am reminded of Bell Hook's book, Teaching to Transgress. And there's these two quotes out of that book that really encompass what Afrofuturism is about. Whether she wrote about Afrofuturism, I have no clue. I doubt it, since the term was not coined until the 90s. But in this case, whenever I read the book or whenever I think about Afrofuturism, we have these two quotes. A revolutionary, one quote is, revolutionary pedagogy of resistance that is profoundly anti-colonial. That is exactly what Afrofuturism is. It's reshaping, rethinking, recreating of our past and our present, our future, to tell our stories, and where we're going. And then it's learning at its most powerful and indeed liberating, because Afrofuturism is extremely liberating, as we'll see, or as you'll hear as we watch these films and as we talk about literature and music. Defined within these elements: storytelling through sound, lyrics, visualizations. Fashion, the visualization can either be the fashion that is in the stage productions or the fashion that you find in the video.
Okay.
One of the main elements of Afrofuturism, whether it's music or literature or any genre of Afrofuturism, is the identity nonconformity as a way of liberation. And Afrofuturist musicians challenge stereotypes and negative images created by those who seek to oppress and devalue and erase Black creativity and innovation. They do this through their music lyrics and storytelling, and they show the value and the multi-layers of Black identity while creating new value and liberated identities.
I'll show up there.
Thinking about lyrics, Sun Ra, as Karen was saying in the very beginning, was one of the first Afrofuturistic artists. Sun Ra started a band, called the Interdisciplinary Orchestra. And their one song, Space is the Place. It spends a lot of time, I wonder whether Sun Ra is talking about space as the past, or whether space is the present, or whether start from space, come from space. Are they going into space now in the present, or will they be going in the future? Or will you think about that in your identity? Then there's this song by Clipping called The Deep. The Deep is actually the narrative or the reshaping of the narrative of the mythical city of Atlantis. And in The Deep, Clipping uses this song to tell people how Atlantis was started by the pregnant, stolen African women when they were thrown overboard, and the babies were born, still born after the mothers were thrown overboard. And they start the mythical city of Atlantis, and they thrive and they're growing. And then this whole song is a narrative of how this city underwater has thrived for all of these years. And then once again, colonialism has come in and tried to take over this mythical city because they have found it once again. So I do have samples. It's okay. Can you guys play it? Yeah, please.
Which slide is it?
It's
Sun Ra right there?
yes, the bottom song.
Hold on. Oh, sorry. You said the bottom.
Yeah, the bottom. And you have to listen to it.
But one breathing water at the beginning. We build our people are unaware of the chain of service dwellers until their world came to destroy ours. Humans, they search for wild understanding. Their greed and recklessness forced from them living.
Y'all remember how deep it got? Started from the bottom. Y'all remember how deep it got? Well, y'all had to come back deep. Y'all remember when it used to be deep? So deep. So deep. Hey, when y'all swam about y'all mama while y'all mama was asleep. So deep. So deep. Hey. And y'all remember when y'all had the dance floor lit, Laura?
Very dope and very deep song. I really like it. All right. And then you can also go, that is more present. Sun Ra was the 60s, and then of course Funkadelic in the 60s and the 70s. And in Funkadelic, their song Wake Up, they talk about changing how people change their hair and their hairstyles, but they're still not changing their minds in order to recreate a liberating present and future for themselves. Then we have the wonderful Black women of Afrofuturism. And I just part this thing every time I come to these slides. So they sing it real, and they sing about liberating the Black feminine identity through their music and their lyrics. So we have Betty Davis first. I would like to say, just a disclaimer, Betty Davis may or may not be appropriate for a K-12 classroom, but she's definitely appropriate for all of us adults. She's wonderful, but so in her song, the anti-love song, she sings about, no, I don't want to love you, that's why I haven't called you. And there's some more to the lyrics, but I'll let you read them yourself. But it's really her reclaiming her identity as a woman. The woman making the choice about being in a relationship and being with who she wants to be with. And a lot of Betty Davis' songs are about that. Then we have my favorite, the GOAT, Missy Elliott. All right. Which is just very interesting because she's only ranked, the highest she's ever ranked on a hip hop greatest list is 48. But she's written and produced so many songs for so many other artists, which is extremely interesting. This goes to show you. But anyway, so in her song, I'm Better, the lyrics, I'm 3,000, it's an Andre. I'm Andre, Missy talk big, I'm so grande, Bruce Lee on the beat. I don't compete with none of these geeks. I just rant like I'm Kanye. I'll show you how to flip a dollar. I'm better, I'm better, I'm better. And in this song, she's really throwing a snub to the music industry that she goes on to say how she pays for the bands that they're popping and the cars that they're driving. And she's claiming for herself, creating her identity and valuing herself, liberating herself by saying that she's the GOAT without actually saying it. And for anybody who doesn't know what the GOAT is, it's the greatest of all time. And then we have my other favorite, Janelle Monáe. And, oh, she's been some controversy lately, hasn't she? But it's so worth it, it's so fun. I love the fact that she re-envisions the Black feminine identity through android race. Her android race, Cindy Mayweather, is representation of marginalized and oppressed people, mostly women, because all of the androids look like Janelle Monáe, by the way. But in her song Queen, she speaks about the multi-layers of identity and what society questions and values about identity. And she tells people that in the song how she values herself, whether you value her or not. So she says, am I a freak for watching Married? With that what you will. Hey sister, am I good enough for you in heaven? Say we're your God, accept me in my black and white. And right there, I would like to stop and think about when we say God, when we think about that, is she talking about a celestial being or is she talking about society? Will he approve of the way I made, or should I reprogram or deprogram or get down? And then she ends with, I love who I am, and there's a great little rap at the end from her and Eric Badu. It was really wonderful. Take some time, read the lyrics, watch the video, listen to the song. And then thinking about identity nonconformity as a liberation through Afrofuturism music, artists also show new ways to value and liberate Black identity from the past and the present and future through their visualizations of storytelling. And this could be videos or stage performances. And I would just like to once again go back to Janelle Monáe and Missy, my two favorites. When we think about the Sock It To Me video, you go to the next slide. Up at the top, we have images from the socket, again, from the Sock It To Me video. And in this video, this is the visualization. Okay, so I'm really gonna say she owes Gmail owes her, because that's her symbol right there. Think about it, Gmail. And she, in this video, her and the brat are superheroes, and they're traveling through space and time. And Black women as superheroes is something you rarely ever see or never see, honestly. Even in Kill Bill, Black Mamba wasn't a Black woman. Interesting. But going back to Sock It To Me, and she's created this whole, her and the music producer created this whole visual world of Afrofuturism, where they are the heroes fighting through space, having fun, enjoying their day. And it's extremely liberating to watch these two, and you just get excited when you're watching the video. And I think it's something that students or anybody would love to have a conversation about many of Missy's videos, not just this one. And then as I was saying about Janelle Monáe and many of her videos, and you can see from starting with Metropolis and through Dirty Computer and all of her albums, she's telling this narrative of Cindy Mayweather. It's this whole narrative, this whole storytelling of Cindy and the arc of her life, the arc of the duplicate androids that have been created from Cindy. They all have numbers, which is very interesting, that she's telling the story all through music. And yeah, and then Queen, one of my favorite songs, which is the video there. And if you are using this, oh wait, if you are having discussions with anyone, if you're having discussions with anyone, whether it is a K-12 classroom or just your friends around the table, because I don't do surface level conversations. So I like to have deep conversations even at my house, whenever I have get-togethers. So I would ask you questions. What is the message that's being told through this song? What is the artist's point of view? what social issue is being addressed. And as you can see, in Janelle Monáe's, it talks about the oppression and marginalization of Black women, specifically, and sometimes Black queer women. And Missy, her identity within the music industry, right? Betty, just her identity within society. And then how is this relevant to today's society? And what other sources can we corroborate or challenge the artist's point of view?
Engaging the curriculum in the social studies department with all that information that is presented today. And she loves hip hop lyrics, and she knows how hip hop can be used in classrooms also to engage with you in literature. So I just want to give it up. She did it, right?
Okay. The next two films are by Lois Moses and Ebony Zamani. Please stand or raise your hands if you can see. So we will have the Q&A right after we show the next two films, okay? And They Jumped Into the Water Some is a 9-minute experimental dance poetry film by Lois Moses. And she is a writer, director, and she performs the poetry herself, and you'll hear her voice in the piece. And she also edited the film, so she's multi-talented. While trekking freedoms require great sacrifice, the idea that they jumped into the water to become ancestors to watch over those of us who crossed over to the Americas. Okay, Lois Moses, MFA, JD, MA, and also currently in the PhD program. She's a poet, activist, filmmaker. That is a 5-minute short film called Return To, directed by Ebony Zamani. It's a meditation on ancestral lineage and projection into the future, the filmmaker's future of actually traveling to the continent of Africa. The passing of her great-grandmother has left many unanswered questions for Ebony, mainly ones around identity. She begins to explore who and where she comes from. Ebony Zamani is a filmmaker. She has a BA from Pace University in Film and Screen Studies and African American Studies. She most recently was on the crew for HBO's award-winning Mayor of Easton, and she's currently working on a multimedia project about environmental racism based here in Philadelphia. And she's also a filmmaker in residence at Black Public Media.
Guys, for allowing us to show our films as a part of this program. I just want to, I don't know if Lois wants to introduce herself as well, but I just wanted to give you a little context and background on my particular film. So this was a short documentary, experimental documentary that I made 5 years ago. And in 2019, I was sort of in a place where I was trying to make sense of documentary as a medium and an art form, and was wrestling a lot with the form because documentary and cinema in of itself is very anti-Black. The medium always has been. And documentary for a long time, this sort of Ken Burn style of doc, it's just very colonial in the way that it's been, just put out. You make a documentary and this is what it looks like and this is the form and this is how it's supposed to be. But this sort of Nat Geo style, come into a place with no context and people come in and like they're viewing subjects or animals in a zoo. And, they're projecting their narratives and their thoughts onto the people. It's like, for me, I was just having trouble with that. And so at the time, I was looking at the work of a lot of Black collage artists and mosaic artists like Carol Walker and Wangechi Mutu and Lorna Simpson, and really found inspiration in their art form and was thinking a lot about how to bring those art forms that have been with us for a long time, so collage, mosaic, really inspired by quilting. How do we bring those mediums into new art form currently, but also in the future, because film media and then even new media, so AR, VR, 360 will be the future of like how we tell stories. How do we bring those sort of art forms that have been with us culturally for a long time into the way that we make art forms, and to bring them into the future, but also to try to make sense of like culturally, what does Black documentary look like, right? Because nobody can tell you what they should look like. And so I'm thinking all the time about like how to decolonize the medium in general. And so that was the reason for my choice at that time, and sort of stitching together a lot of images, a lot of video, a lot of sound bites that were important to me at that time, and sort of just where I was. So yeah.
First, I have to say that the soundtrack is, the music is done by Tim Shepard, and the recording for that piece.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
I have to say one thing though. When I do music and putting stuff together, I am inspired by the spoken word and what I hear. So it's
And just to say, this piece, the sad part for me is that I'm still showing this piece and it's relevant. That's number one. But secondly, this piece was written, and you talk about Afrofuturism, and I'm, what I'm studying really has to do with, I guess, African-centered, looking at sheroes through an African lens, particularly with African-American scholars who give us license to speak in terms of our own narrative. So this piece really came about, and I'm always thinking about Sankofa in terms of us going back, because it's not taboo to go back and fetch with that what we've forgotten, and it's also essential. So this piece was really, I was sitting listening to Sonia Sanchez read a piece at a friend of mine's house. She was doing a book signing, and literally these ancestors just started talking to me. I heard them to the point where I had to leave because they were so loud, and it took a 2-year period because it was so difficult and resistant, because we have been colonized to believe because we have been separated from our own understanding of who we are and our spirituality, that we've been colonized to believe that giving one's life in terms of sacred sacrifice, which is what this is for me, is suicide. And if we understand our own African epistemology and our history, we understand that there is, particularly, me studying Yoruba, recognizing that there is a connection not only between the ancestors, but also that sacred waters with Yemanyana in terms of rebirth and holding us in the mother. So just sort of putting this became a tribute to those sisters. And it took 2 years to write, and I couldn't find the end of it. And I ended up with Anthony Browder at believe it or not, a Mayafa retreat. And in the plantation next to supposedly Kunta Kinte, whoever that is. And the next day, this poem just started writing. And it finished, I guess, about 6 months later, the last on the Schuylkill. And of course, it's talking to me, and I'm like, look, I'm driving. But this was the hardest poem, and still, these are some of the painful thing for me is that these sisters will remain nameless, but who they are as sheroes in terms of the archetypes that guide us toward our better selves and our strengths, and remind us of that African spiritness that's within all of us. Yeah. And so this is my tribute to them, and just somehow turned into a film. It wasn't necessarily meant to be, but I guess it had to be. Yeah. So.
Of course, it was a reminder of what the existence of how we're living today in communities, but the likeness with how our neighborhoods have changed and what's being built right now was a reiteration of a conversation that's going on now. Why is our neighborhood changing? How are people being displaced by the changes in our neighborhood? And what can we do about it?
And if you think historically, that talks about redlining.
Right.
Right? So do you see some of the historical components of the elements of Afrofuturism as well? It talks about, again, history, culture, and the things that have happened to us and how we can make changes in our future.
My name is Ashby, and I'm a psychologist and an Afrofuturist and an artist, and there's a lot of intersections there for me, particularly during this time when I'm really trying to connect with a lot of the stories of my own ancestors and doing some similar work. And my question is, particularly as someone who's done a lot of work in psychology and therapy and trying to heal our people through a lot of these intergenerational wounds, how was creating these films, how did it influence your own experience of healing, or what did it feel like? How did it impact you individually in your efforts to honor both ancestors and maybe descendants in the act of making this film?
That's a great question. I feel like it's a constant sort of healing process. I'm going through a grieving process. But it also feels like a proper like reclamation process as well, you know. And so I think I experienced as much as I've uncovered and have uncovered with one of my brothers who, you know, we've been doing a lot of digging and piecing a lot of things together. And this piece actually has had me working on featuring about the long way home about genealogy in general. It's inspired me to continue to work in a way that I feel like, you know, gives room and space for like culture and who we are. You know what I mean? I don't feel like at this point I'm grateful for the experience because I don't feel like I'm going to be either too much either way. I think it's important for everybody to see their likeness themselves, make sense of their stories, their narratives for themselves. And so I think I've just doubled and tripled down more and uncovered family stories and made sense of like, you know, who people were and how people were and how those things resonated with me. I'm like, oh, maybe that's where I get that from, you know. But yeah, I think it's always like an ongoing healing and grieving process. I've heard no parenting, so I miss other about all the time. And you know, can sometimes even start to reach other people as you read about their lives and find out more. But I think it's work that I'm privileged to do and purposed to do. And so, yeah, I think it, you know, there are mixed emotions, but it helps keep me going. You know, it's really an inspiration for me. So.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. Oh, sorry.
Stan, if you make a comment? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, she's talking.
Yeah, I love to hear. Yeah, I mean, I think, it's everything I do is about the declaration, reclamation, recreation, remembering, restoring, and retelling the narratives of African American women. So, and now I'm doing this through my scholarship again. But what it is the energy and the energies through these ancestors and the spirits just fuel me in a way that I can't, which is why that's what I'm doing my dissertation. That's what my doctorate is for, tapping into this energy. What can it bring us in remembering, reclaiming, restoring, and reviving and recreating and transforming? So that is what it is. And these ancestors in particular, because I can tell you, and I'm feeling them all around me in terms of the spirit. But you know, we know when the spirit is in and around us. These are the strongest ancestors. I've been writing since I was 6 years old, do a whole lot of ancestry stuff. I'm the fourth generation educated. My great grandmother met my great grandmother in 1883 at Parkland University. So I know who I am. These spirits are the strongest spirits that I've ever experienced. And they live with me daily. And they push me on to bring forth the others who have jumped overboard afterwards. So that's why I say, I hope that gives you some, but I would definitely like to connect with you.
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much. All right. Okay.
Thank you so much. And now calling up our last presenter, our last educator, Dr. Ava Crawford.
Good afternoon, everyone. All right, I'm gonna bring this home a little bit and then grade
educational fashion. Sometimes you gotta tweak the lesson to make it connect and relevant. So I did a little tweaking. So I thought about the films, the last two films, and I can say Jump in the Water. I must have watched it about 20 times, a lot, because it resonated in my heart. It resonates with the work that I do, also as a healer as well. So that spoke to me so loud and clear. So when you think about jumping into the water, it can be seen as a symbolic act connecting to our ancestors in Afrofuturism and in literature. So in many African and African diaspora cultures, water is often associated with spirituality, transformation, and renewal. So in some traditions, water is believed to be the gateway to the spirit world and a means of communication to the ancestors. I heard you, Lois. I heard you. So when we connect to our past, we want to bring it to the future. So we don't want that symbol to be broken. It symbolizes the resilience of African and African diaspora cultures. It disrupts what we already know, right? So in literature, Afrofuturism often it takes a deep delve into the past and uncover hidden narratives, plays with our nonlinear time structures, emphasizes interconnectedness and the community. Afrofuturism literature challenges traditional narratives and often a more holistic view of history and future. So in my classroom, currently in my office, I always make sure that I have a space, and there's always elements of nature in there, because I also, students come to me and, I guess I said I'm at Martin Luther King High School, and we know that our neighborhoods are plagued with violence and our children embody all of that hurt too. So sometimes they need a space. So the oil burners on, candles lit, the Himalayan light is on, there's a water feature, all the things, because I need them sometimes when they come in, just to sit and breathe. Sit and breathe, and then we can move forward to the next thing that we need to do. So I like to tie in all of those, bring those things into my spaces before we can talk about anything else, right? Because when we're talking about literature in the classroom, we're thinking about teaching, I gotta think about who's in front of me. And then who are they? So I need my students to understand their own identity. And that's where Afrofuturism comes in great, like, who am I, where I am, who I come from, all the connections of thinking about our grandmothers and our great grandmothers and why am I on this earth? Why do I love and connect to herbalism? Why do I connect and love to all the things that I do? Like there's something beyond me that brings me, attracted to these things. So we can find those things oftentimes in literature, and that's a great way for students to explore. It's also a great way for adults to explore, even if you don't know that. So I want to start a little bit with once upon a time. In 1920, W.E.B. Du Bois wrote an early example of Black speculative fiction. It wasn't called Afrofuturism then, but it was called speculative fiction, and that might be familiar to some people. This short story appears as the final entry of the collection of works entitled Dark Waters, Voices from Within the Veil. Anybody know the W. Du Bois wrote this?
I read it.
Okay.
I do.
All right. So we'll learn a little something else today. All right. And so for me, if we're not learning, we're not thinking. I don't want you to ever, and I tell my students this all the time. Just because I say it, don't mean I'm right. Question me, question you, question everything around you. Do your homework, bring in what you know, because I want you to be able to start taking in information and start asking questions. So we get those narratives that don't sound right. Don't go with the flow. You gotta start questioning. Like, who was here first? So, they always wanna, I got kind of slapped on the hand, as a teacher, because the social superintendent came and said, she's not using those brand new books. I said in Burlington, I also was a teacher at Burlington High School when I left Germantown. So he said, she's not using the books. Well, the first story about Christopher Columbus. Do you want me to read this, or do you want me to tell you about his savagery? Do you want me to tell you about all the atrocities that he put on the people here? Or do you, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go on, because what I said was, the first thing that's important to me is students to learn their identity. And we're not starting with him, okay? So that's the watch, and he's not gonna cheer. And I say all that to say, because I also model this for students too, and have them questions, because I need them to be able to critically think about what it is that people are putting in front of them. Okay, and a lot of times my daughter got in trouble with history, and she's like, that's not right. They call me Miss February needs to be quiet and play. No, she don't. Maybe you need to read something else. That's the purpose of what I want them to do. All right, so when we think about who we are people from the great wheel of storytelling. We like to tell stories. We find it extremely interesting, and most of the time that's how we learn from the things. I remember sitting at the kitchen table with my grandmother who would make me, because girls had to learn how to cook, that's the generation. Okay, so I had to sit there and learn how, about family history, and I had to learn how to do certain things, and those things typically came through a story sometimes, and I still remember them. So I'm just popping this up. So I want you to look at this picture.
Oh, sorry.
And while you look and study this picture, how might the child in this picture identify themselves? What is this child's story? And how does this picture define resistance? What historical context do you see in this picture? Give you a quick moment. I'm not gonna give you as much free time as I would in the classroom. Somewhere you got to think fast. But these are things that you could do at your kitchen table with your children, with your grandchildren. Does anybody want to share the answer to any of these questions? Since I kind of threw everybody on the spot. Can you stand up for me, please? Thank you.
Sure. So in this image, I see both the past and the future in conversation with each other. I see the cowrie shells that are so deeply important to so many different African cultures, and have expanded across time and have different specific meanings to different cultures and communities. I see the beads similarly. They look Kenyan to me, but again, it was like cultural traditions that have lasted millennia. When it's matched with the headgear that seems very like solar punk and like steampunk and futurist. So in terms of the song we heard earlier, the deep about the children in the ocean who are the children of women who jumped overboard. This is what it's giving me, because it looks like a child who's lived in Atlantis under the sea and is maintaining their culture, while swimming around and being joyful and finding a way to survive. When you can't breathe underwater, but they can.
Thank you for the she did. Yes, she did. Anyone else?
Okay, I see the beginning of time and the end of time. I see humanity in life. I see the essence of everything that has been created as it relates to the human being. I see Eve. I see every life force coming from this child. And I see hope.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Forgive me if it's too simplistic. My 5-year-old said they shot me for you.
Since I don't want you to apologize for that wonderful, beautiful answer, and it looks great, and I love it.
Yes.
Love it. Great answer.
Let's give it up
Right?
for her.
Yeah. And these are things that we can do all the time. My mom wasn't an educator, but music was how I learned. And she was on the phone and don't think.
Look at the words, tell me what you think it means. And what does that mean for you in life? And I'm like, oh, and sometimes I get a little mad and I just want to sing the words. You feel the beat, stop saying them and listen to the words. So we have to bring in what we already know, bring in what we do. And so we can teach our babies, that's the start of it, right? Because we know that this may not happen in their classroom. They may not see images of themselves and where they can say, okay, there's a future for me because that child looks like me. And that's the thing that we want to make sure that we are instilling in our children and knowing that it starts at home first and foremost. Okay. All right. So just as Shaquitas has essential questions, I often, move with essential questions too, to give them a process of like, think about some things as when we look at this learning. And what role does fictional writing or poetry, lyrics play in articulation of Black resistance from past to the today? And how can fiction or poetry / lyrics play a role in envisioning Black liberation and Black empowerment in an oppressive reality? Okay, Afrofuturism is also about that dreaming. Who can I be? Reimagining what my people can be based on where they were or how society sees them. How can I do that? So these are some questions that will be posed at the beginning. So they will be posted so that everything that we talk about, we can kind of tie it back in so that answer can hopefully expand. Okay, but we definitely want, as the baby said, to have our students be brave enough to think and move forward. All right, so Zorna Hurston and Toni Morrison. Everybody's familiar with those two ladies, right? Okay, awesome. Okay, Mama Toni said the one thing you say about a myth is that there's some truth in there, no matter how bizarre they may seem. So we watch movies sometimes, and then you turn around when maybe 6 months later, and you're like, just seeing this on a movie. There's some we thought was a fictional movie, but it's always been true. And we want to tie into that when we're looking at literature with timeless pieces in there as well. So when we're thinking about like Jamie Crawford in Their Eyes of Watching God, for the protagonist in the story, she was a woman who was unlike no other in that time period. She's down south and she's moving how she wants to move, and she's not going to be held down by what society says that she should be. So I'm not about to do that, right? And I'm not about to be held down, and I'm not about to be labeled on what I should be. So we want to take the rest of myth that somebody constructed of what people, men, women, children should and should not do or be. So she took that myth and said, nope, not going to do that. The same thing with Mama Morrison. She's like, I don't write books for white people. I write books for us. I want to make sure that we see us when we're looking at it. They told her, well, nobody's going to buy your books. Well, that was a myth. That was a myth. Because people buy some Morrison books, right? They buy them. All right, and then the last quote. Folklore is the art of the people before they find out there is such a thing as art. Go back and listen to those stories. Intergenerational conversations are necessary to reimagine what the possibilities could be. Taking the past and bridging it together with the present so that you can build this future. So that's our task. That's the task for you all today, is to walk out and figure out how can I connect yesterday, today, to build this stage for tomorrow. Think about the people that you are in community with in your lives. Okay, were you familiar with the flying stories of Africans? Okay, I'm not gonna move on without seeing time. Okay. Everybody familiar with Octavia Butler?
Yes, yeah.
All right, even if you are interested, know about the parallels of the Sawyers, those theories, she also had a graphic novel out of the parallels of Sawyers. So if you have a person who maybe
not kind of resistant to reading, but they'll look at graphic organizers, but you want to connect them to Afrofuturism, a graphic novel, not graphic organizer, sorry, my teacher. A graphic novel is a way to usually bridge the gap of getting them into reading without it being like intimidating. Nora Jimson is another author. Just want to she does a lot of things with fantasy building, science, fiction authors. So just Nayla Hopkinson. And I actually, it's not a book on here, but I want to bring it up since we were talking about water. There's a book written called Skin of the Seas. I love the book because it goes back into the Orishas, it goes into Yemayah, they're in the water. It pulls out those ancestral beliefs and practices and reimagining the new world. So I have a special place for that one as well. But all of these books here, yeah, I read all of these. But right now I've also taught some of these books in my class too. As being a rebel, I don't necessarily read what they tell me to read. I read what it is based on the audience of the students in front of me, and every student in my classroom will be able to see him or herself in my space. You need to be culturally responsive. So I want to kind of tie in these four individuals: Toni Morrison, Betty Davis, Wanagichi Mutu, Zorda Hurston. They have each contributed to Afrofuturism thinking in their own unique ways. They have challenged conventional narrative, explored themes of identity, empowerment, and incorporated elements of mystical and fantastical, and celebrated the richness of African and African diaspora cultures in their creative works. Through their contributions, they have enriched the Afrofuture movement and its capacity to reimagine the past, the present, and the future of Black communities. Ladies and gentlemen, please, 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 find your niche, find the people that connect with you, bring them into your lives, bring them into your families, bring them into your communities, because it is important that, yes, we know where we came from, we know where we are, but we need to know also where we're going. Okay, so that is important for us to do. All right, so I'm going to thank you. I want to shout out Sister Karen Williams again. Thank you, Sister Karen, for the invite. Smith talking about Afrofuturism and music, and then again, I am also here in Crawford, and my name is Angela Crawford.
Inside the bag, you'll find a platform with all the educators as well, all the filmmakers and everything.
If you want some of the resources, you can also, there's also the trifold in the bag, but if you are a person who likes to have things digital, there's the QR code that you can also add it that way too. So again, we're trying to be responsive. Gotta be responsive to all the needs of the people. So we gotta bridge those things together. All right, I'm gonna call Karen back up.
I'm almost in all the filmmakers and educators. Every time they speak, every time they present, every part of where they present, I am just in all of their work. So let's give everyone a round of applause for all the people so far. We're getting ready to wrap it up. We do have one more video that we would like for you to see. This is really touching to us because it does involve a documentary that Nadine Patterson as well as Marlene Patterson, two of our Asalh members, created themselves. I think that's enough. And it is about for educators going back to Africa. Listen, you have to know where you came from. You have to know where you are going. And we cannot do this work alone. So please, as a Asalh, before we get wrapped up, if you are interested in joining us to present this work and ongoing, please make sure you fill out that information. Join us. We meet once a month. We meet on the third or fourth Sunday, but you can follow us on Instagram as well as Facebook. The information is there. Also, want to give a shout out to the Philadelphia Heritage Branch, who is also in the audience. Thank you. Our president, how we do it. And now we're gonna watch one last film. It's called The Educated to Africa, and we do have our guest here, so you'll be allowed to ask me questions as soon as that is done as well.
And I just want to say that the Irwins are here as well. They're featured in the film. They're down front. So yeah, so this is about them, and they were very kind in welcoming us into their home. So we just are so blessed with that. Okay.
I'll just say something. That experience that we had in Africa in 1970, really the greatest thing that ever happened to me, because as we indicated on the video, before going to Africa, before getting involved in Africa, in the African American history, and like I said, I had no desire about it. Nobody wanted to be African. Nobody wanted to, that I knew, wanted to be related to anything dealing with Africa. And to end up there, that was just the greatest thing that ever happened. It freed me. I used to suffer through a feeling of not being good enough for anything. And our kids, many of our kids are like that. They suffer self-hatred. And I did that. But Africa freed me from that. When I was in the Army in 1957, my roommate and I were going to the movie one night, a white fella, and we were talking. I don't remember how it came up. But what he said was, he said, but Ted, your people have no history. And I remember it felt like somebody had thrown a bucket of ice water on me. I was shocked, and I was shocked because I didn't have an answer. There was nothing I knew I could say to change his mind about showing the slides of modern Africa. Started turning around. And before we were halfway finished, he was watching with the other kids. And the kids would ask us, why don't we see this on television? And, I explained to them why. So all I can say is Africa's saved my life, saved our life. And we have lived a great life. We've been to Africa 18 times. 22 countries. We've been to 60 countries since we've been married, 53 years. Everywhere we go, we're not just tourists, we're looking for African footprints. We were in Germany and visiting our nephew. And he was driving all over, and he took us to this place, I forget the name of the town. But I saw this building, they had pyramids on the front. They had an obelisk on the front. I said, now I said, what's it doing here in Germany? And then I started reading again. I said, oh, the Romans were in Germany. So I was saying with this, if you want to educate yourself, start with Egypt. Okay. And what I have found is, if you become familiar with that, you become familiar with the rest of the world. One last thing. Rome, and what I found was they only let Rome and Persia and all those countries. Their civilization lasted 600 years at the most. Greece, everything we learned came out of Greece, didn't it? That's what the textbooks say. I don't care what subject you're studying. Your first chapter in your book is about Greece, education, medicine, and all. It all came out of Greece. But you find out that all of those Greek scholars studied in Quebec. And nobody tells you that. You have to find it for yourself. But what I found was, I asked the question, why do these countries, why do these societies only last 400 or 500 years? And Egypt lasted more than 3,000 years. And it has to do with their philosophy, their religion, their belief system. It was the same in 3000 BC as it was in 30 BC when the Romans took over. Read about our ancestors. Read about what our ancestors did. Thank you.
I just wanted to piggyback on what Ted Irvin and his wife was saying. I have been on a number of trips with them, and I have learned so much in traveling with them. I've had a number of the same experiences that Ted Irvin had. When I was in Temple University, there was a professor who said to me, "There's nothing in Africa, nothing." And it just didn't sit right with me. So when I found Naomi Berry, who was the founding member of Asalh, the Montgomery chapter, I got with her and I said to her, "I want to go to Africa." And she helped me organize a group of friends, and we went. Then from there on, I went another time with Ted and Elsie. But also, I got the enthusiasm to do something. I'm not a philosopher, but as things were given to me, I felt that I needed to share with other people. So I would buy dolls and instruments and all kinds of things and bring them back and show it to my students in school. Like Ted, there was one girl when we were in the hallway, because I made all these big posters and had a display in the hallway. We were sitting in the hallway, and like Ted said, her head was down. She didn't want to hear a thing about Africa. But as I kept speaking and showing things, gradually she creeped up like everybody else. So that was so encouraging. And then I found also that my friends, my relatives, they didn't know much about Africa. So the things that I took to school to share with the boys and girls, I then brought to my home. And people then now can see some of the things that I learned and objects that I brought in Africa, and they are appreciative of it too. But like I said, all you have to do is just do a little bit. Start somewhere. And that was what Naomi Berry and Ted and I can't think, there was another famous Shirley Carman, yes, but the guy from Georgia, Asa Helder, he said, you don't have to do everything, just do something. And that's what I try to do.
I hope you had a great opportunity and celebration today. The key word here is liberation, and learning to liberate your mind through learning your history. If you are interested in joining us now or want more information, I'll be right over here. Please come see me. Please come see me. And if you have any other questions or anything of that nature, and I see a couple comments. I see Reverend Paul, and then I see another person here. Go ahead, Reverend Paul, really quickly. Go ahead, please. And we're about to close. Actually, can you help us close? If you don't mind.
Amen.